Gabriel Ungureanu, make your Drupal site reform.
Thank you. Bear with me a second to connect my laptop. Worked from the first try, that's nice. Okay, I'll try to not go too technical. I know many of you haven't taken their coffee yet, and also I haven't made a presentation in 1 or 2 years, I think. Okay, what I'm going to talk today, I'm going to talk about Drupal performance. I'm going to talk about how you can make your Drupal site run really fast. I want to take a review of how the user experience is split and what are the areas that you need to improve to have a better performance. Just some little things about myself. I've started DG Prime some years ago. That's when I started my Drupal development. I contribute to contrib modules. I'm also part of the Drupal 8 sprints. We're very eager to see Drupal 8 happen in the near future, hopefully. And yeah, I'm an open source enthusiastic. I like all about the open source community, the open source projects, and how this works for us. Okay, so now back to the subject. Why it is important to have a performant website is that visitors spend very little time online to make a first impression. It's very important for them to get the information as quick as possible. You need to also consider that Google puts a lot of ranking on your performance of the website. We have experienced customers that doubled their traffic by just improving the speed of the website. No keyword, no description changes, so it's very important to have the right speed, and that's somewhere under 2 seconds load time. You need to make sure where your customers are, so it's not just the download speed on a high-speed fiber optics connection. It's very important to acknowledge the fact that internet consumers do it from train, bus, airport, 3G. 4G is a different story, it's similar to broadband. And you have to understand the capabilities of the devices they use. They're not classical desktop users anymore, they use mobile devices, tablets, and so on. So what are the key points that you need to consider when understanding your site's performance? I've split it in 3 points. If you don't agree with me, we can discuss at the questions panel. First, we have the server response time, the time that your hardware and software needs to deliver the page. Then you need to consider the download time of your content. This depends on the connection and the page size. And something that is often forgotten when people analyze their performance is the page render time. It's very important to make sure that after the user gets all the data about your page, that data is also rendered in good time. So you can get a huge machine like this one to serve your Drupal site. I don't want you to rush on using such a server for 20 hits per day. You really have to look at your traffic expectations and scale your infrastructure based on that. It's also very important to segment your users before you do any performance tweaking. You need to understand if you have anonymous or authenticated users traffic. That is very important for your server rendering especially. And also you need to make sure what type of data do you deliver. If you're making a new YouTube for video rendering, you definitely have a different software and hardware architecture than having a community website. If you're running a low traffic website, you can do it with just one machine. You can have on it all your services like PHP, Apache, MySQL, everything that you need in one box. Drupal has some nice caching options. Make sure you adjust them based on your segmentation of authenticated or anonymous users. Make sure you deactivate all your server logs. I'm talking here about the Drupal logging, but you also have a series of server logs that are come from your web server, MySQL, or other services. Logging information can take up a lot of your server resources as well. Make sure you disable the development and the UI modules. As you know, Drupal has separate UI modules for like views or defining content. You don't need those in a production environment. And you use your CSS JavaScript aggregation. For those who are using this often, you know that there are some problems with Internet Explorer support. There are solutions with the advanced aggregation module that splits your files. Here you can see, I believe that many of you are already familiar with these screens. You have the standard Drupal caching on the left, you have the logging and the errors, you have the views caching on the bottom right. Okay, if you have, if your traffic grows, you have options to change your caching structure. Drupal by default stores all the caches in MySQL, and that's why if you grow your traffic, you're going to probably have a lot of problems with the MySQL service. Solutions for this are Memcache and Redis. Again, are very easy to set up. They're very well supported by the Drupal community. And they can easily take off the load from your MySQL database. If you have static content, the Boost module works great. It just makes HTML dumps of your full page view, and delivers them in lightning fast manner. And now the high traffic structure, you're probably here considering having different hardware machines to host these services. Again, this is the type of architecture that we usually do to serve, let's say, millions of users. You'd have a varnish cache server that's also heavily used for static content. It sits in front of your application server. Again, the beauty of open source is that Varnish has a great support for the Drupal community. Also, all the Varnish sites are running Drupal, their community site and their company site. And you can very easily find support on how to set up your Varnish, how to configure it, and how to properly run a Drupal instance behind it. There are some specific rules you have to take into consideration on what to cache, what not to cache, and so on. Then your application server can run faster with Nginx. Again, the main difference between Apache, which I believe everybody already knows how to use and how to write some simple Apache rules. If you migrate to Nginx, you have a different rule syntax. You can easily find an Nginx configuration file that's set up for Drupal 7. So don't be scared about this. And then the database server, as I said before, MySQL can be seriously used by Drupal. So you might want to separate this or balance your MySQL instances. And that's a typical architecture where you have your customers hitting your Varnish server, getting its fresh content from Drupal, and then communicating with MySQL. Doing this architecture, you can easily balance both your app server and your MySQL server. You can put them behind load balancers and provide the experience you need. I was saying before, it really depends on the type of data you have. If you have binary data, images, or video streaming, it really depends on the scope of your project. You can easily plug in a CDN service in this architecture that will be fueled by your Drupal site and deliver the content directly to your users without hitting any of the cache server or the app server itself. So that's we have used it for video and photo streaming services with success. Any questions so far? We keep it at the end. Okay, some other things you want to consider. Now we have put all our focus on the hardware. As I said, you have plenty of options to set up your hardware with Drupal. One important thing is the revision system. As you might know, Drupal has an out-of-the-box revision system that creates for each field, and it creates two tables with the data and the revisions. In many cases, you don't need this. There is a module that you need to do some SQL updates and make sure it works without revisions. can start your project from a distribution like PressFlow. What PressFlow does, it takes the latest Drupal code, it applies a series of performance enhancements, patches to the code, and really helps you get the best experience from your project. The downside of this is you don't have the Drupal updates as fast as they are on Drupal.org. That's a process that PressFlow does. I believe the updates are appearing in a couple of days after Drupal release. I made you a list here of some nice cloud hosting solutions. They are more or less delivering your content based on the scheme I previously said. I'm not marketing them. I'm just giving you a list of what's outside there. Acquia has their own cloud system. Platform Message is done by the commerce guys. We have tested it briefly and it works quite nice also for the development process and also for the deployment process. Pantheon has something that's another company that does WordPress and Drupal hosting. Why I'm listing this here is that there are some out-of-the-box solutions that you might use. They come with a price, but they are very easy to set up and they are closely tied with Drupal. And they are another confirmation that you can host it yourself on the same architecture as they propose. What we usually do for our live servers, we are using the Amazon Web Services. It's very easy to expand your data center whenever you want. They have the dedicated database instances, elastic machines. You can plug in a load balancer. Let's say you have a marketing campaign and you want 20 servers for just 1 week. It's very easy to pay per hour or per minute with them. And that's also a service we do in-house and have great experience with our projects using the Amazon Cloud and our knowledge on top of it. Okay, now I want to speak about the page download time. So we have solved the server issue. We have as many servers as our project needs. It's now very important to take a look at how easily the content reaches your customer. And here are, I put here a Chrome timeline with all the content downloads. You can see you can download several resources at a time. The most important thing here is to have the number of resources as low as possible. So then make sure you, I repeat this, you aggregate your CSS and JavaScript files. Make sure this doesn't break your site. It's very important to write proper CSS or JavaScript rules that once you aggregate the content, your site doesn't get messed up. You can easily push this to a CDN server so that even if you don't have a very high traffic site, you can put at least your CSS, JavaScript, and images files on a CDN service and let them take the responsibility of delivering your assets. connection time and the initialize process. If we look back at this image, you have a connection time from when the request is sent and when the server starts streaming your data. So then it's very important that you aggregate your icons, your images as well, so you have this little number of connection times. Or for your icons, for your vector assets, make sure you use SVGs. SVGs are way smaller than than the binary image formats. You can as well use icon fonts, that is keeping the size quite low, and you have the flexibility across devices. You can easily scale up and down your content. Then the render time. You have to make sure, so that's also an important aspect, to have as little DNS lookups as possible, so don't load your content from multiple domains. Discussing about the initial connection time, if your browser needs to connect with the DNS service to get the IP address of the resource for multiple domains, then you're wasting time. Speedy, it's a protocol promoted by Google. It's deprecated, is going to be included in HTTP 2. It allows you to download multiple assets in the stream. That's very helpful to get the assets all together. About the rendering time, it's very important how your markup on the site looks. You want to have the right order. You want to put the important information first on the site. You don't want to use to put JavaScript or CSS files that are not critical for your page at the top of your page. You can just easily move them at the bottom of the page. For instance, if you put that Facebook feed on the side of your site and you load it in the very first lines of code, that will drastically impact your performance. Use valid markup. If your markup is not valid, it will show. There is going to be no problem on seeing the site correctly, but your browser takes additional time to correct the mistakes for you. And use as few tags as possible. That has been a very big debate on, especially the front-end teams. Don't really like the markup Drupal shows out of the box. There is a nice team built by, I think it's a Danish guy, the Mothership. It's a very, very simple, plain Drupal team that has only the basic tags needed. Because if there are front-enders in the room, they know Drupal gives you hundreds of wrappers and you have everything. It's nice, you have everything you need, but when it comes to performance, then all these wrappers are turning into objects in your browser, and those objects take up memory and time. additional 2 teasers to show on the site. Or this is very often used for dynamic content. You can cache your static information, show the page in less than a second to the user, and then run a quick Ajax to just put in the dynamic content. I put here a common usages of this technique. Is for instance, a commerce site has a cart. It has mainly static content about products and everything, but you need the cart to be loaded with an Ajax, so you can actually see your products, not somebody else's cart that gets cached on the server. News sites as well, they push new articles on top of static pages, or things like comments, votes, counters across the site. Everything you can do it with Ajax. Okay, then for the authenticated users, a good start for you is the alt cache module. I put here the process of generating an alt cache page. It has great out-of-the-box options on how you can set up rules for the authenticated users and cache their content independently. So if you do this, then you can just sit and relax. As all your caches are running and your users are happy. I think I got too fast. Yeah, if you have questions, just before I finish, I have something to tell you about backend training that I'll have at the university. I'm not sure if it's going to be here or at some other venue. It's organized by Practic. It's a students' organization to bring technology to students mainly, and I'm going to have a six weeks course about Drupal from medium level. So do you have any questions? Coffee? Okay, thank you then. I'll be right here if you want to ask me something after the talk. Thank you very much.